All right, why don't we get started? Everybody hear me okay? Okay. So this is Monday evening, November the 24th. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee. Present at the start of the meeting from the committee, Councilors Greenberg, Mickley, uh, Malachi, Gentile, Humphrey, Bixby, Grossman, and Lipoff. Um, So we don't really have a heavy agenda, so let's get started. The first item, there's a couple of things on here, mainly to try and tie up some loose ends and clean up the docket. So the first item is 157-24. This was a request for proposals from outside special counsel to ensure compliance and enforcement of applicable permits at the Turtle Lane site in Auburndale. It's still around. So what I wanted to do this evening is just to get folks an update on where things stand, and then at the completion of the update, and certainly if people have questions, they should ask them. I'm going to ask that we NAN the item. And folks can decide what they want to do next year with the new council. So, having said that, we are joined by the city solicitor, um, Ms. Giuliani. So, Ally, I was hoping that you could just give an update on where things stand. There was a change in what was the direction that the project seemed to be going in. And with the filing of a bankruptcy. So if you could just sort of summarize that for us, um, and where we stand now, as far as some outside counsel, and we'll see if there's a few questions and then we'll wrap it up. So I'm going to turn it over to Ali Giuliani, City Solicitor.
Thank you, Chair Gentile. I have a brief update. You are correct. There was a bankruptcy filing. Some of your fellow councilors may remember that the bank had foreclosed on the property, and there was a foreclosure sale that was advertised, I believe, at the end of August. That was postponed indefinitely after Turtle Lane LLC filed for that bankruptcy. By law, bankruptcy stays all creditor collection efforts, and the matter proceeds through bankruptcy court. The city is participating in the bankruptcy proceeding as a creditor, based on our desire to collect a significant amount of fines assessed to the LLC. We did hire outside counsel to protect our interests in that bankruptcy matter. We are working with attorneys that specialize in bankruptcy law in order to represent the city and our interests in that bankruptcy matter. And we've also retained them to help us ensure that property is sold to a qualified buyer as efficiently as possible, in addition to collecting those fines through the proceeding if we can. So the case is proceeding before a bankruptcy court judge. The parties, that is the bank, the LLC, primarily are working with the court to approve a plan to sell the property. There's no date for a new foreclosure sale. Right now, the parties are proceeding to try to have to market the property and to try to have a sale approved through the court. So that's currently where we stand. We're doing everything we can to make sure that the sale process happens in a timely manner, and that ultimately redevelopment of the property is part of the plan as we move forward. So that's the only update we have now. We're just waiting for the court to finalize, to work with the parties, the primary parties, to finalize a plan of sale. But we're involved and staying in constant contact with the parties there in the bankruptcy matter.
All right, thank you. So again, I want to emphasize, as Ms. Giuliani has stated, this thing was headed to a foreclosure auction, and I believe it was in August. A bunch of people showed up for the auction, including myself and a few other counselors. And that is when we learned that, I think just the day before, that the ownership group, the LLC, had filed bankruptcy. So the gentleman that was there to run the auction explained what had happened, explained what was just shared with us, that it stopped all kinds of activity. He reset the auction date for a date in October, but there wasn't a lot of hope that anything was going to actually happen in October, and it didn't. One of the things I want to make sure that everybody takes away from this is, we've been getting questions. Some people are under the impression that there still was going to be an auction. So if you take one thing away, in case you get asked, unfortunately, that is on hold right now. And then the other thing that Ali shared with us, and I appreciate it, is I was concerned. I wanted to make sure that our interest, the city's interest, because there's a lot of money that we are owed, that it is that our interests are being protected. Like foreclosure law, I'm told, can be a little difficult to if you don't deal with it every day. So I'm pleased to hear that that the law department has gone out and got some outside counsel, again, to make sure that our interests are being protected. So if there are any questions, now would be the time to ask. Anybody have Julia, Council Maliki?
Are we owed back property taxes, and are we certain to collect those in terms of our seniority versus other claims on this party?
We are not certain to collect them, but we have certainly inserted ourselves in the case to try to collect all of the fines, and to make sure that the court understands that we are a creditor. So no one's really certain to collect or to collect a portion, but we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we try.
So I'd like to add, Julia, the only other thing is, I had been checking every so often, and it had been my understanding that the bank was paying the property taxes.
Right.
I don't know, Ally, do you know if they've continued to do that or if they stopped?
I believe that they have continued
Yeah.
to pay, but I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, that was my understanding. And we can certainly, we can check with the treasurer and find out if in fact that is still the case.
Because right now the bank is technically the owner,
Um,
or that's not clear either.
No, technically the LLC is still the owner. The bank was unable to foreclose as it had
Right.
hoped.
the bankruptcy stopped that.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Well, I don't know who's going to be on finance next term or not, but I hope that folks will, stay on top of this. There's a lot of money at stake. You all know, you've seen the site. It's a disaster for the folks that live near it. So if you could keep that near and dear to your hearts and work with the law department to hopefully get to some resolution. You're a better man than I, because I haven't been able to do it, but it's important that we keep trying. So, all right. So if there are no other questions, can I get a motion to NAN this item?
I'll move to NA in it.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All right, all those in favor of NAN, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, looks like the motion passes. Well, I see Counselor Mickley has also joined us, so I'm
Yes.
assuming that this passed 8-0.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item is docket item 324-25. Her Honor the Mayor requesting the appropriation of $297,400 from the sewer fund surplus account to fund the design of repairs and rehabilitation of three, important sewer pump stations comprising Phase 3 of the pump station rehabilitation project. This was heard last week in PF and was approved 6-0. Commissioner, it's all yours.
Good evening, counselors. This is a request for funding for the pump station rehabilitation design, Phase 3 of our multi-year CIP project. This request covers the design and bidding for critical upgrades at 3 of the city's wastewater pump stations, Quinnipiquin Road, Elliott Street, and Langley Road. These upgrades were identified in our recent pump station condition and performance assessment, and they address issues that are critical for maintaining safe, reliable pump stations. Our pump stations operate every day around the clock. They are critical infrastructure. They move the wastewater to MWRA facilities and prevent any backups into homes, businesses, and roadways. The assessment identified several priority deficiencies that include aging or failing pumps and pump motors, emergency generators that have reached end of life, deteriorated hatches, roofing, and structural elements, electrical and control system components that need renewal. Completing design puts us in position to bid and construct these improvements in a timely way. The design contract covers project and design management, field evaluation and basis of design, preparation of 60, 90, and 100% design, and bidding services. The design and bidding work will take place over 6 months, and the total cost for this phase is $297,400, which covers the engineering, design, quality control, field evaluations, and preparation of bid-ready construction documents. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Maureen, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In addition to what the commissioner is presenting, not that it's before you tonight, but it will be 2 weeks from now, the pump station project is one of the major projects that we have happening out of the sewer fund. And so we will be coming back in 2 weeks with construction work for some of the pump stations. All of this money, we have a very, very healthy sewer reserve fund right now. And so we are using those funds to pay cash for not only this design work, but the construction that we will be back here with 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Council Humphrey.
I guess I'll just move approval on the item. I think it's mostly a Ward 5 project.
Okay. Thank you. So there's a motion to approve. Before I call for a vote, does anybody have a question or a comment they want to make? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the item passes 8-0. Next item is 325-25. Her Honor the Mayor requesting the appropriation of $325,000, the Stormwater Operating Reserve account to fund the development of a comprehensive stormwater infrastructure analysis and plan for the Cheesecake Brook subbasin. Commissioner.
As the chair noticed, this is a request for an appropriation for a comprehensive stormwater model and resiliency plan for the Cheesecake Brook subbasin. Cheesecake Brook is one of Newton's most complex and flood-prone areas. We've seen increasing impacts from short duration, high-intensity storms, and areas like Border Street are experiencing flooding more frequently. The current stormwater infrastructure improvement plan provides a useful foundation but it does not reflect updated GIS stormwater data, the latest climate projections, or modern 1D, 2D hydrologic and hydraulic modeling tools. This work is necessary to give the city a clear data-driven understanding of where flooding occurs today, how it will worsen in future climate conditions, how the MWA water main may impact flow through the culvert, and which solutions will reduce the risk most effectively. This project includes an update and verification of our stormwater system data, conducted targeted field verification, updated 1D and 2D flood models, it will model present and future storm scenarios, and will update the stormwater infrastructure improvement plan into a stormwater resiliency plan, and will evaluate mitigation alternatives. This work will begin shortly after the award and conclude by December 31st, 2026. Sorry about that. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Council Malachi.
I also listened to the public facilities discussion on this, and I'm delighted to move this whenever we're ready, and very happy the Border Street situation is going to be studied.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve the item. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the item, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? And the motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, counselors.
Thank you. 327-25. Veronica the Mayor requesting the creation of a Department of Older Adult Services gift account with an upper limit of $1 million to fund affordable programs, events, scholarships, and critical social services. Chairman Krinsman, are you here to present this to us, or is there someone else that is here for this item? I don't see anyone.
Ms. Murray from
Ms.
Older
Murray, are you
Adults.
here? Okay, great. You're here. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what this is all about?
Sure. This is, excuse me, this is an ask to create a gift account for older adult services.
Can
which
you
is
just for the record, can you just identify yourself?
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
That's all right.
Mignon Murray. I'm the Director of Older Adult Services,
Okay,
or formerly the Department of Senior Services. This is an account to accept general gifts. It's a usual practice in most councils on aging and some other departments will allow us to take those general gifts up to the amount of $1 million, and it will help us to offset scholarships, programs, and social service needs when they come up.
okay. Any questions? Okay, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Council Grossman. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 8-0. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Murray.
This is a
Okay.
quick question. Sorry, Counselor Gentile.
All right.
I just didn't think of it until we were already voting. There was some discussion at the committee meeting, the prior substantive committee meeting, about talking about what kind of accounts this were. Mr. Curley, did that come across your desk? The Counselor Oliver had asked some questions about like how those differentiate from revolving fund accounts and things like that.
Yes, good evening. So Jonathan Yo had reached out to me about Counselor Oliver's questions, and I had sent a follow-up email to Counselor Krinsman. And basically, a revolving fund are fees or fee-based programs where those fees are used to support the program itself. These are just general donations from the public to be used for various they were outlined in the thing, but various services, or if there's somebody that may not be able to afford a program, they can essentially turn that donation from somebody to be used to pay that program on behalf of the individual. So there is a pretty black and white difference between general gifts and fees that are used to support a program.
I think one of his substantive questions for our purposes was, does this require some other thing, or like it's just this docket item and then we've taken care of it? Or because sometimes there's issues around like ordinance references and things like that to some of these special accounts.
So the other piece that I had touched on in the response, because it seemed to be a question, was would this need further approval? And it would be part of the grants gift revolving exhibit that's part of the mayor's proposed budget. And in there, I put together the list of for the gift accounts. It's any general gifts. That way you don't need to go and approve them as a separate item each year, but just approving an upper limit of donations that are accepted or acceptable for the department to take in without having to go back to council. And it is different in the sense of if there was a specific gift for a specific purpose. I had just a random thing in there, which probably doesn't make sense, but I basically had mentioned if someone wanted to donate money for a basketball court outside at older adult services, if it was for a specific purpose like that, that is not part of the general gift, and that type of donation would require your approval. But if
Okay.
it's just a donation to the program, that would fall under this.
All right. Thank you. That's all.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so we voted approval of the item 8-0, so we're all set with that. The last two items on the agenda, I basically put them on there, and my thinking was to ask for that they be referred to the 2026, 2027 council to just keep the subject matter alive. If folks have any other thoughts, I have not been successful in engaging the administration to discuss the claim by the individual, which continues. Well, I think it was formally denied, if I understand correctly. So we're not going to be discussing that because the mayor's feels as though it's not appropriate to have that discussion. So I'm open to suggestions. If folks are okay with referring it, let's refer it because I think it's an important subject matter. There, one of the items is the one that a couple of you encouraged that we have at least take a look at this program, take a look at it as far as eligibility for part-time workers and so forth. But we're obviously not going to get anything done this term, so I don't think we need to take people's time, but it's certainly worthwhile taking a look at the program. I don't think it's been reviewed or changed in any way in a number of years. So that's why I'm saying maybe we just refer it. So let me go with Council Humphrey and then Council Grossman.
Am I correct in assuming that Ms. Pizzi O'Brien and some of the other folks on our screen are here to talk about at least that item, the general discussion, the 31825?
Well, I know that I believe that Miss Giuliani is here for that reason. Then now you're right. I hadn't seen Miss Pizzi O'Brien, but if we could have a discussion about the broader question of the program itself as opposed to the individual claim that I had docketed. So that certainly would be fine. Maureen, excuse me, Council Grossman and then Maureen.
I had my hand raised for essentially the same purpose. I see that we've been joined by several senior members of our Department of Human Resources. And of course, we have Miss Giuliani here as well. So if we're able to at least get an overview just to kind of set the table for our understanding of the program, I would like to do it, given that
Okay.
they're here and ready to participate. Thank you.
All right, and then we can decide whether to refer it after that discussion or any, obviously other items would be in order. Ms. Lemieux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just before we begin the dialogue, I just want to kind of set the stage for it, if I may. Obviously, today was our last docket day as an administration. And so as you were correct, Councilor Gentile, anything that would be discussed or contemplated would be happening with the new administration. At that point in time, if this is something that people really thought they wanted to look at, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that there would be massive HR, legal, and financial implications, which will cost the city many, many millions of dollars. I don't know if I'm not even going to opine on whether or not our policy is correct or not at this point in time. I just want to make sure that as a finance committee, you understand that there would be many millions of dollars involved. We would need to do significant research on all of it. We will not tonight be in a position to give opinions on what we ought to do. We would need to do all of that research if that's what the new administration really wanted us to do. I just wanted to say that ahead of time so that we may appear vague in some of our answers. It is not our intent to be vague. It is just that this really is a huge conversation. And I just want to kind of set the stage before our city solicitor and our director of HR and our workers' comp manager all start to weigh in. So thank you just for giving me that minute.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, Chairman Gentile and city councilors, we actually did not come to present anything to you. Rather, I wanted to make sure that we heard, obviously, what the committee's intention was, what this matter, and of course, if there were any questions that we could take in, to Maureen's point, that we would then look into. There is an ordinance on the books that describes workers' compensation eligibility. It was passed in 1984, and the city council has not made any amendments to it in the last 40 years. So as Maureen described, this would be a huge undertaking for the city and one that our departments would work on to provide all the information the council would need to consider it. But we weren't here to present anything. Certainly if there are any questions, to the extent that we can answer them, we can do that, but I wasn't planning on any sort of presentation, but rather to listen to what it was that the councilors wanted to do and where you wanted to go on this issue.
Okay. So is it the desire of the committee to just at least get an overview of the program, how it works, and see where that takes us? Is that what folks will go ahead, Councilor Grossman?
That is certainly my hope, is
Okay.
if we could get an overview of what is, not trying to pin anybody down on opinions of what should be, but a workers' comp ordinance from 1984, when I was 4 years old, strikes me as pretty old. And I would like to know what it says and what it covers and where we line up with law. And I mean, I'm assuming we're compliant with what is required by law. And where it lines up with other communities. That would be a great start for me.
All right. So, Michelle, not to put you on the hot seat, but maybe you could just start by just giving again an overview of how the program works, We're different than other communities, I believe, because we're sort of self-insured, if I understand correctly. Maybe how many people are receiving benefits today, how much the program is costing us, just some general th information like that. And then if people have questions, then they can ask and you folks can respond however you feel is the best way, appropriately, okay?
Thank you, Counselor Gentile. Being in the hotspot is in my job description, so don't worry about it. I think I saw Ally unmute. Did you want to speak first, or do you want me to jump
I
in?
just wanted to start off by just explaining to the counselors that workers' compensation, there is a statute that requires employers to provide workers' compensation, but applies differently to private versus public employers. Workers' compensation is discretionary for public employers. As Chairman Gentile described, we are self-insured. And because of that, public employers have the authority to decide whether or not they're going to provide workers' compensation to employees who are not required to be covered under another statute. So a prime example of that would be a public safety employee that's required to be covered under what we refer to as 111F, but it's essentially a workers' compensation like coverage. In 1984, the city of Newton undertook to decide whether or not they would provide workers' compensation. They did provide it before then, but in 1984, there was an opportunity with a statutory change for public employers to decide whether to provide or continue to provide that coverage and to whom to extend that coverage, again, within their discretion. So in 1984, the then Board of Aldermen took up the issue and issued what we refer to as Board Order 444-84, which is the order that outlines who is considered eligible for workers' compensation. And so I just wanted to preface that because workers' compensation is not automatic for public employees. You have to look in every individual community to determine whether that coverage has been extended to its public employees and to what extent. I have not looked at the various ordinances for other communities in Massachusetts. We can certainly undertake that effort. But as I said, because this is discretionary for public employers, it is likely going to be different for every community that we would look into.
So, Ally, one thing I'm confused by, isn't there though, like a limited coverage that like a city or town has to offer at a minimum, and then whether or not they choose to extend, like doesn't state law summarize a requirement of how far the program has to go? So I thought I heard you saying that you don't even have to extend it at all. That would be news to me.
Well, no, there are a number of statutes that provide coverage to public employees in various categories.
Okay.
That is mandatory. So the simple example is, say, police and fire. There are statutes that mandate that the city provide compensation, or I should say injury compensation, that's what we'll call it, for those employers. So we are mandated to do that for certain categories of employees. And then for other employees that are not otherwise required by another statute to be covered for some sort of workers' compensation incident, it's discretionary.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Michelle, could you touch on some of the other, issues
Sure.
or areas that I raised?
Yes, I think I heard other communities cost number of employees, and then just other general information. So I think I might leave number of employees and cost to either Maureen or Kelly. But I can tell you, I'm not aware right now of how our program compares to other communities, other than that I do know many are self-insured. Some operate, through MIA, the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Agency, Association Agency. But we are self-insured. And I can tell you going backwards about eligibility based on the board order, as Ally alluded to, police and fire police officers, firefighters aren't covered by workers' compensation because they're covered by a different law. So Massachusetts General Law 41, Section 111F and 100 for medical, if I recall. Our teachers are not covered. However, our custodians and craftsmen for the school department are covered by the city's workers' compensation program. And Kelly, when you speak, tell me if I got anything wrong. Our full-time city employees are covered by the city's program, and our part-time employees are not covered by this program. And for the purpose of the board order, part-time is defined as 30 hours or less. I'd have to, I think, hand it over to Kelly Brown, who's here. I don't know if you noticed that she was here, and she can, I'm not sure if you're prepared, Kelly, with details on our current number of employees on workers' comp leave, but if you have any of that available and would like to share, please feel free.
Sure.
Kelly,
Good evening. As far as number of people on workers' comp at the moment you're looking for?
I think that's what you said, Counselor Gentile, number and I
Yes.
think cost.
Yeah. It's about 44 people are on workers' comp on various, we've talked in the past about the various sections. 10 on temporary total, 17 on what they call permanent in total, 1 that's on widow's benefits, and 6 that are on partial. And then under the 111F, which would be police and fire, we have 6 police and 10 fire. So that's separate regulations, but similar, as Ally was saying, it's similar in that it's wages and medical being paid for somebody that's been injured in the course of and arising out of their duties at work.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Questions? Council Grossman.
Okay, I have a few. So I guess my first question is, how has this worked for us in general? I mean, are you, as you think back about our experiences with the kinds of claims that have been filed, as well as I don't know if there's like an appropriate way to say this, but like injuries on the job for people who haven't been covered that have then bubbled up into other kinds of legal matters. Has this policy served the city well? Is it serving the city well? Where is it sort of fallen short of what's both in the best interest of the city and our employees? That's kind of the major question. And then separately, what is our wiggle room like to deal with one-off kinds of cases? I think the reason this came to our attention was because of a one-off kind of a case. And more recently in other HR-related matters that aren't necessarily this, I've heard examples of other really valid one-off kinds of cases. And at least in speaking to my colleagues who have served on the city council for longer than I have, it seems that in the past, there has been some wiggle room to sort of handle, do what is right, which I know is not like a clear-cut standard, but some wiggle room to kind of take care of people. And that wiggle room seems to not really be present now. So those are my 2 major questions at this moment.
Councilor Grossman, I'm going to take the first part, and Maureen, you want to take the second part?
Yes.
Sure. So on the first part, what I would say is we take safety very seriously in the city of Newton. Kelly does a lot of work in that area. If you ever take a look at our newsletter, you see some of the activities we do relative to safely. So complex issues are usually few and far between. But that said, could we do better? Should we review? That's obviously something, we're all talking about, and I think it's always healthy to do that under any circumstance. To the question of wiggle room, I'll leave that one to Maureen.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
will jump in here. I don't know that we call it wiggle room, but we certainly call it doing the right thing. And so we have had, in the course of at least my tenure here in the city, we have had a few different instances where people have legitimately been hurt. And so I'm not talking about anyone, that might have a specific potential claim against us now. I'm talking more in the past, when we have determined that someone had something that legitimately happened to them, where they were not someone who was covered by, quote unquote, by our workers' comp policy. We made sure that we took care of any out-of-pocket expenditures that they might have had, that costs that went through their health insurance plans, that anything that they would have incurred, that we made sure that we took care of that. We have been vigilant doing that, because we have had some part-time employees, certainly in my employ during the city, who have been harmed through no fault of their own and in the course of their business with the city. And we have certainly, so I don't necessarily consider that a one-off. It isn't like looking at a situation and saying, would we cover it? Would we not cover it? It's much more looking at a situation saying, oh my God, they're our employee. They are technically not covered under the workers' comp policy. However, they were hurt through no fault of their own, and we need to make sure that they stay whole. So that I can assure you we have done over the course of time. I certainly am not going to talk about any specifics when it comes to that. However, I can assure you we have done that.
okay. Kelly, is who?
Yep. I
I
was
thought
just
it was somebody else.
the medical, I can think of one or two that the medical's covered, but the lost time would not be, so that you have to think about workers' comp as two different benefits. There's one for lost time and one for medical expenditures. So in that case where Maureen's speaking to, we help with out-of-pocket medicals that weren't covered, that with the medical providers were going after the employee, for the part-time employee in that case, and helping out with those things like, a copay or something that wasn't covered. But they were not covered for the lost time, as in wages under workers' comp. Different benefit.
Okay. Council Grossman, did you have
Yes,
something?
thank you. Yes, another question. So I'm curious if you know, have we been sued either by folks who are not covered and have some sort of reason to have a claim against the city, or by people who are covered, but somehow our coverage is inadequate? And if so, with what frequency has that happened, and what kinds of outcomes and financial impact has that had on the city?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can at least start that,
Okay.
Councilor Grossman, we spend, which is why we have the large law department that we do. We spend our lives being sued. However, when we reach any settlements with anyone that's over $5,000, we come back to you as a council, as a finance committee, to get your approval. So, when you think back over the years, when our workers' comp manager has been there in front of you looking for settlements, anything that's over $5,000, we come back to you. So before they even begin to answer that, and I think, as you know from all your time on the council, it's not really that often that we come to you, because we try to the very best of our ability to be as fair as possible to anyone who works for us. And so now I'm happy to open it up, but I just want to almost preface it by saying, we're in the business of being sued. And that's why we come to you when we need to settle these cases.
I will just add, Councilor Grossman, at least in my time and the time that I've been able to review prior to my joining this city, I'm not aware of us being sued by anyone who had either was not covered, had inadequate coverage. I mean, Maureen is correct. Any of those cases would have come before you, and I'm not aware of any. So I would say the ordinance has served the city quite well in covering those folks that need to be covered. And I'm not aware of any, one-off or singular incidents where we've been sued by someone who felt that they were not either properly covered or should have been covered.
So along these lines, and I'll get to you in a second, Council Greenberg, am I correct in my understanding that even though it's a program, that we've kind of designed and we self-insure it, if somebody were to file a claim and the claim were denied, does that individual have the right to appeal the decision to the IAB, the Industrial Accident Board? Is that how it works?
That's correct, Counselor. That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. So it doesn't have to be sued. At least they have an option to appeal, so that we don't.
Absolutely. Employees retain the right. An employee retains the right to file an appeal with the state if they are not covered, or their coverage is denied for some reason, or they believe they were insufficiently covered for whatever their claim may be. They absolutely retain that right, and they don't have to get a lawyer and sue or file a lawsuit against the city for that.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Council Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Chair. For those employees who are not covered under the Workmen's Compensation Plan, would they have any coverage under the state FMLA plan?
You mean
talking the paid FMLA?
I'm sorry?
You're talking paid FMLA, PFMLA?
Yes.
The municipalities don't pay into the PFMLA.
Oh.
So they would have, if they had sick time or vacation time, but a lot of these part-timers aren't going to have vacation time. Some may have sick, but not particularly vacation if they're less than 30 hours. So no.
Okay. Okay, so no city employee has FMLA?
It's not paid FMLA. Paid FMLA is for private sector. Municipalities do not pay into that state program.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, thank you.
We do offer, Councilor Greenberg, unpaid FMLA leave for employees who are eligible, and they can substitute with the paid leave time programs that we give our employees that you often don't see in the private sector. So we have generous paid leave time options, so they take advantage of that. But employees who aren't covered on our workers' comp, well, certain employees, some of our seasonal employees or part-time employees under 20 hours do not receive paid leave benefits, so they would not have paid leave available to them.
Okay, thank you.
Back to Council Grossman.
Thanks. Sorry, I guess I have all the questions tonight.
That's all right.
So can you help me understand broadly why it would cost millions to contemplate a change to this ordinance? The answers so far about how it's working and what sorts of claims we've had, and Ms. Lemieux, your answer obviously put pieces together for me in terms of the different claims we've had come back before us and I mean, if I were taking a wild guess, I would say it's not more than twice a year, and that's maybe once a year or so that we've seen something like that. So why is it that, contemplating a change would have such a dramatic financial impact on the city?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll start carefully answering this, and then I may stop along the way and not give you a sufficient answer, Councilor Grossman. But certainly, if we were not to be self-insured, workers' comp is I think it's a federal calculation on salaries within the city, and so workers' comp for most private employers, workers' comp insurance is a very, very expensive part of the benefits that they have to give to their employees. That's why we don't do it. That's why we are self-insured. If we were to cover all of our employees, those employees who may have been hurt, who are not covered, who may have been hurt, and I'm going to look to Kelly and Michelle and Allie to stop me if I'm wrong on this. But one of the things that's very different is if an employee is hurt and they file for a workers' comp claim, and we accept it as workers' comp, we don't get on all of the medicals, we don't get the same discounts that we would if they go through our health insurance. So if they're taking their health insurance with us, we have deep discounts that they are able to receive. And then if we supplement any costs, and so this is not what drove this decision at all, but I'm going to explain to you about the money part. If we then picked up the difference, it is substantially different than what the medical claims would be under a workers' comp claim. And so I'm going to look at Kelly, because I want to make sure that I have not misrepresented any of that. I think I am saying something that's very true. But if I can look at Kelly, I don't think we see any of the typical insurance discounts that we see on all of the medical claims that we pay through our health insurance versus what we do through workers' comp.
Right, that's correct. And in my prior life, before I worked for the city of Newton, I did work in an insurance company, and what Maureen was talking about the all employees. And as an underwriter, if you were writing a workers' comp policy, you're looking at every category, every job description, how many fall into the part-time category. So you would have to think about part-timers across the board, citywide, city as well as schools. So how many part-time employees do we have if you potentially had coverage for all of them? Obviously, not every single one of them is going to get injured, but you're going to anticipate some claims may arise from them if they are now covered. And then you would have to be able to set aside and reserve and plan for such claims based on historical number of injuries arising out of that type of employment. So you can imagine, we don't have all the historical data because they weren't covered before and the numbers, but you could project and anticipate based on your full-timers. If, DPW, for example, one of my loss leaders has 3 or 4 injuries a month, and you sort of look at each job and the risk of that job and how many you would have to predict how many injuries may come out of covering that, and then anticipate picking up those claims. So you would have medical expenses as well as lost time wages under workers' comp should you endeavor to bring them on to and within the coverage. So it would be a big study to look at every part-time person, everybody under 30 hours, city side and school side. How many part-timers do you have, and project those numbers? Hence the disclaimer in the front that it would take a lot of study and analysis to really figure out what the potential exposure is on those claims.
I think the only other piece I would add, and maybe it makes it seem a little, or it's a little bit simpler, is self-insured plans they have to have adequate reserves to cover. If we were to expand the claim potential, we would have to have adequate reserves to do that, from this kind of like newly covered population. So to just echo what Maureen said at the start and what Kelly just said now, we would have to do our due diligence and fully understand the risk pool and all of that, not having historical data, having to look elsewhere in order to prepare for that. Maureen. Oh,
And
I'm not the
Mr. Chair,
caller.
if I can just jump in one more time, to build on what Michelle just said, and I think our comptroller can certainly attest to this. Each year, our workers' comp plan is in a trust fund, just like our self-insurance plan is. We have an actuarial valuation done each year on our workers' comp plan. So we don't do this in a vacuum. We have professionals who come and look at our comp plan, make sure that we're putting the right amounts of money in each year. So that kind of builds on what Michelle was just saying, that this is all incredibly complicated, especially when you're self-insured doing it. But we certainly have the right professionals who look at these funds and make sure that we are funding our comp plan and maintaining the reserves that we need to, understanding what the life expectancy is of many of these medical claims. And so if somebody is on comp and if they are totally and permanently disabled, we own their medical costs, oftentimes, not in every case, but oftentimes for the rest of their lives. We have actuaries who calculate all of this for us and let us know what, excuse me, what they think the value is of the cost that we have going forward. So this is which is why I said in the beginning, this is such an incredibly complicated issue. If the new administration were interested in exploring this and changing it, it would take, certainly a significant study for us to understand what the implications would be.
I just want to jump in for a minute to remind everyone that I was not advocating or suggesting that we should expand the pool. I brought this to the council over one specific case, an employee with 43 years of experience that started in 1982. And when they started, they would have been eligible. Because as someone said, I think it was Ally who said that the law was changed in 84. And so I felt the fact that they had started in 82 gave us that wiggle room that Council Grossman was talking about to do the right thing. So I just want to remind everybody of why I brought it. I wasn't bringing it because I thought that we needed to make, these wholesale changes, expand the pool, and possibly cost the city, an awful lot of money. That was not my intent. All right, anybody, Ally, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that yes, the law did change in 1984, but a piece of information that I thought would be relevant is that in 1984, when the Board of Aldermen considered this, they specifically considered part-time employees and explicitly made the decision to exempt them, thereby creating no wiggle room for that category of employee. In fact, the docket items from back in 1984 suggest that there was a proposed order before the board that was then changed to specifically add in part-timers as being excluded from workers' compensation coverage. So this is not a situation where maybe the board just didn't, didn't foresee that so many years later there would be a larger category of employees that they should have covered or wish they had. In fact, they considered other categories of employees as well to either include or not include. But there is specific language that was added to the board order to exclude part-time employees from workers' compensation coverage at that time. So that's the order that has remained in place all of this time.
So, and that's new news, and that's the kind of news that I wanted us to have a chance to talk about. And because it could change people's minds on what to do on the case that I raised with the council. And that's what was a little bit frustrating, is that we didn't get a chance to sit down and talk about this, because, people might have had a different opinion of what the city should be doing. So that's not something I had heard before. So I think it's important information for people to have. Anything else? Anybody else? All right. Well, I think it's been helpful. It's we're all a little smarter tonight as to how our workers' comp program runs. What do people want to do? I mean, do we want to? We can NAN these items if people are more comfortable doing that. And then the next council can decide if this is something that they want to dig into deeper. We can refer it. I'm happy to do whatever the committee would like to do. Councilor Grossman?
By refer it, do you mean refer it to the future council?
Yeah,
It's gonna die no matter what at the end of the term, right?
No, you can refer it to the next council. You have to specifically take the action to refer it, is my understanding. So otherwise I see Council Humphrey nodding his head. Otherwise, things die. But if you take the action to refer it, which, like, for instance, what I believe we're going to do on the Walker Center, so that we can keep the item alive and keep the item with the city council, you have to have a specific motion. It used to be that stuff would just roll over, but we changed that. It would roll over automatically. But we have the ability to refer something if we want to.
Interesting.
Oh.
Well, I could go either way. If folks are more comfortable with NAN, of course, we can always redocket something in the next term if people want. But otherwise, I think my gut reaction would probably be to NAN 299-25, but refer 318-25.
Okay, others? So you're saying to refer 299-25?
No, I think I would not refer
Okay.
299-25. It seems pretty clear to me that
Oh,
there's
you're saying, okay, I had it
further
wrong.
discussion before this committee that would really occur on that one. Well, and I guess I mean, I feel like we could go either way, because on 318-25, it seems to me like if folks want, maybe there's more independent research to be done, rather than, as I'm sort of thinking it through, rather than just having it hang around on the finance docket. But I could be convinced either way by my colleagues if they felt strongly about it.
I was hoping that we would refer both, and the reason for that, Councilor Grossman, is and I have no reason to think this is the case, because I really haven't talked to the mayor-elect that much about it. He's aware of it. But if we were to refer both items, he would have the ability to, review the specific claim and take a different action if he chose. That's why I was kind of hoping to keep it alive. Council Mickley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree with that sentiment, and I'm in favor of referring both.
Okay. Maureen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm a little surprised at this conversation. I thought that the action that we took 4 or 6 or 8 years ago, whenever it was that everything died at the end of a term. I didn't know that you could refer anything forward. Obviously, you can redocket it, in January as a council, if you want a discussion item, but I'm really surprised that, you seem to think that something can get referred forward. I thought that we eliminated all of that several years ago so that everything that showed up on any of your agendas was a new item. So,
Well, Cassidy wants to weigh in. The reason why that's my understanding is we had a pretty extensive discussion about this when we were trying to figure out what to do, with the Walker Center situation. So we were told that it could be referred. Now, maybe we got bad information. Cassidy, go right ahead, please.
The council can vote to refer an item to the next year. The finance committee, that can be the recommendation to the council. It does require a full council vote at the next meeting, but they can refer it to the next term.
Okay. All right, so we can take that action. And then again, it would obviously go to the full council and we'll see. Council Humphrey.
I was wondering, Ms. Lemieux, were you objecting to it carrying forward? You seemed frustrated by this, and I'm puzzled by that. I can't imagine it was a deliberate strategy to try to run out the clock on this item thinking it would die.
If I may, Mr. Chair, it's not that at all. Whether it dies or whether you all redocket it, a month from now makes no difference to me. So I'm not looking to avoid a conversation. What I can tell you is back in the day when I first started working for the city, we had, and Councilor Gentile can certainly attest to this, we had agendas that had docket items that were 2 and 3 and 4 and 6 years old that had been referred over to the next council. And it was a real struggle as an administration, I think even for probably the board back then, to be dealing with docket items that had been docketed by people who no longer were on the council. None of that is my concern. It's that I thought that a few years ago that all changed, so that my understanding is that everything dies. Anything that's not voted on by December 15th, that it dies. And then for anything that any of you want to redocket, that it comes back in January. I'm never afraid to have a conversation about things. It's just more a matter of making sure that we understand what moves forward and what dies. And so I don't know if Ally wants to weigh in, but that is not what I thought happened anymore. I thought, and in fact, I've been telling all of our department heads, anything that doesn't get voted on by December 15th is dead and has to, start all over again. So I may be completely mistaken.
I think, you're correct on the intent of the reform, and it is still a good idea to try to wrap up everything before the end of the term, because most things we're not going to extend, but we do have the option to extend items individually.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's the way we're going to look at it for now, and if we're wrong. But again, Maureen, I wasn't quite sure, and then it was folks in the planning department that told us what we could and could not do with regard to the Walker Center. And because we wanted to keep the Walker Center alive and keep it with the city council, we were told to take the action that we have to this point, and that to refer the item to the 26-27 council. That's how I got to this point. So let's look at it that way. And if we're wrong, then we'll take care of it on the 1st. If we're not allowed to do it, then we can't do it. So we'll check it.
Yeah,
But
and I will too, because I'll just say for the record, this is news to me, this referral process. If the planning department told you that, I hope that they consulted with my office on the rules before that. Happy to confirm whether that's the proper procedure for moving something on, because I joined Maureen in my surprise, because it was always our understanding that items that were not disposed of at the end of a term would have to be renewed as a new item with the new council.
All right, well, it's easy enough. It's in our rules, one way or the other, so we can double check it. I don't know, we're not gonna settle it here tonight. We have to look into it, obviously. So we're gonna assume that we do have the authority to make the recommendation to the full council to refer items. And if it's not the case, as I said, it'll show itself in our rules, and then we'll have to deal with it differently on the first. So that's what we can do over the next few days. So having said that, can I get a motion to refer both items? If somebody wants it separated, just ask. If we can refer both items to the 26-27 city council.
I'll refer both.
Okay, you refer both. Any other comments? All right, we can do it with a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes 8-0. Before everyone leaves for the evening, I was trying to get all of our business taken care of so that we wouldn't have to meet in December, but my understanding is that we definitely have some items coming. As Maureen said, we've got a contract that's been agreed to with the Teamsters that we want to take action on. There's a couple of items that directly affect some of our retiring employees in the executive office, and in fairness to them, I want to take that up and get that to the full council. And I think there's a few other things that I'm getting wind on. So we're going to have some work to do on the 8th. Just as an FYI, my dear colleague, Councilor Albright, is running around. I worry about her being overextended, but she's trying to get everything and anything PF related voted on this term, and I'm trying to help. They want to have there was talk about a special meeting on the 8th. I wasn't too pleased with that because the 8th is a regularly scheduled meeting of finance, and they were talking about setting up a public hearing for the bike, rock, roll, wiggle, somersault proposal. And so, that wasn't working out too well because I felt, we have the right to that night, and I didn't want people to have to choose between that. And they were talking about an item, a joint meeting with zoning and planning. So everything is in a little bit of a flux. So I did say to her, when I thought maybe we only had one or two items, that maybe I'd ask people to come in a half an hour earlier, and then we could do that public hearing, and people who wanted to stick around could. So anyway, I'm doing the best I can to be respectful of your time, but also to get through the city's business. So please stay tuned, okay? But we do have some important items coming up that we want to take care of and dispose of on the 8th, all right? And I'll let you know as soon as possible if I'm going to ask you to try and start at 6:30 or not. I have to have another conversation with Council Albright. All right. Anything else? Anything else people want to get off their chest or whatever? Or all right. So thanks again. I once again appreciate everybody's being here on time in 100% attendance, and we're adjourned for the evening. Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.